Hey everyone, and welcome back. We're doing a deep dive today
Of course.
into the world of student housing. It's something that we hear about all the time, as a hot topic.
Right.
And we've got some excerpts here from a document called RE22 Student Housing in Public Companies. And I think it's going to be really interesting to kind of see what this document has to say about it.
Definitely.
So we're going to be exploring, the challenges of affordable housing options for
Right.
students and also, the rise of some major companies in this sector,
Interesting.
which is something that I think a lot of students might not even realize.
Yes, absolutely.
How big some of these companies are getting.
It is a big business.
And get this, some companies are turning hotels into dorms.
Wow. So
That's pretty wide.
something we're going to be looking into.
For sure.
We're going to find out just how big these student housing giants are getting. It's fascinating, isn't it? What's interesting to me is that student housing
Yeah.
is often seen as this kind of separate world,
Mm-hmm.
but it's actually deeply connected to these bigger issues
Yeah.
like affordability, urban development,
Yeah,
even social equity.
absolutely.
All these things kind of tie in.
Yeah, so let's unpack that a little bit.
Okay.
The document really emphasizes
Aye.
tackling the affordability and accessibility hurdles that are in student housing. And they outline 9 key strategies for doing this.
Nice.
9 key strategies.
Wow.
And these aren't just like far-fetched ideas.
Right.
These are actually like practical solutions that they're suggesting.
Yeah.
One of them involves getting educational institutions involved to actually identify the needs and potential sites.
Right. So like working together.
Yeah, exactly. Working together to figure out, okay,
Yeah.
where do we need housing and how much do we
Where
need?
should it be? What kind of housing should it be?
Exactly. And it goes beyond just building more dorms.
Yeah.
We're talking about purpose-built housing.
Right.
So that means considering what students actually need.
Exactly.
Being close to campus,
Absolutely.
keeping costs down,
Yeah.
and even, thinking about different models of housing.
Right.
Like micro units or co-living spaces.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine living in a micro unit?
I don't know if I could.
Would you?
It would have to be a really nice micro unit.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and it would have to be in a great location.
Yeah. Location,
Yeah.
location.
Exactly.
That's true for everything.
But yeah, thinking outside the box like that.
Right.
They even suggest repurposing existing buildings, like hotels.
Wow.
So
That's interesting.
think about that for a second,
Yeah.
Turning a hotel into student housing,
Like, what would that look like?
what would that look like?
And like, how would that affect the surrounding area?
Exactly. And that's a great point.
Yeah.
You think about the ripple effect. This could have, transforming a hotel into student housing.
Right.
Could revitalize a neighborhood. It could even help reduce urban sprawl.
Yeah, absolutely. Like all these unintended consequences.
Yeah, it's
That
like,
could be really positive.
it's like hitting 2 birds with 1 stone.
I like it.
But let's not forget about the money side of things, too.
Right, of course.
The document talks about, financial aid
Yeah.
and rental subsidies for students who need that extra help,
That's really important.
which raises an interesting question.
Yeah, what's that?
How do we make sure that these support systems are fair
Yeah,
and available to every student who needs them?
it's a valid point.
Yeah.
We can have all these great strategies,
Right.
but making sure that everybody has equal access
Mm-hmm.
is just so critical.
Absolutely. And another strategy that really caught my eye was
Okay.
this idea of prioritizing transit-oriented development.
Oh, interesting.
So imagine this student housing
Okay.
built around convenient transportation. Yeah.
This sounds pretty good, right?
That sounds amazing, especially if you don't have a car.
Yeah.
Or, you're trying to save money on gas.
Exactly. And that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Affordable housing isn't just about the rent.
Right.
It's about the overall cost of living.
Absolutely.
And that includes transportation.
yeah.
So if students can easily access public transportation,
Mm-hmm.
that could seriously impact their budget.
Big time. Yeah.
Not to mention, the environmental benefits.
Oh, right. Of course.
Less traffic, less pollution,
Happier students.
happier students all around.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win situation.
For sure.
And here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay, I'm listening.
The document also stresses the importance
Yeah.
of getting feedback from both students and the community.
Oh, wow. So
So, like, what do they actually need?
what do they actually need and want
Yeah.
in their living spaces?
Right.
It's about creating vibrant and supportive communities that are actually integrated with the surrounding neighborhoods.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
That would be incredible.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think a lot of people don't even think about.
Right. They just think about the building itself.
Yeah, exactly.
It's got to be part of a bigger...
The bigger picture.
Yeah.
And then finally, the last strategy focuses on supporting diversity and inclusivity in housing options.
Yeah.
So it's about making everyone feel welcome.
Of course.
And having access to the resources that they need to thrive.
It all ties back to the bigger picture, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
You know, providing a place to sleep is just one part of the equation.
Right.
It's about fostering a sense of belonging, supporting academic success, and really contributing to the overall well-being of the entire community.
I love that.
Yeah.
The well-being of the entire community.
And that's what we want, right?
That's what we want.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
That's the goal.
Okay, so now that we've talked about the need for, affordable and inclusive student housing, let's look at some of these companies that are really involved in this whole market, the public companies that are, really shaping this landscape.
Yeah.
You might be surprised to learn just how big some of these companies are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to understand, as we go through these companies, how their influence can have both positive and negative impacts on students.
Okay. So let's jump in.
Let's take a look.
Let's take a look at these major players.
Okay.
First up, we have American Campus Communities, or ACC.
Okay.
They're like the king of the hill in student housing.
Oh, wow.
Over 200 properties across the U.S.
That's a lot.
They're a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, ACC's size is certainly impressive, but it also raises some important questions.
Okay, like what?
Well, when one company controls that much of the market, how does that affect pricing for students?
Right. Could they just charge whatever they want?
Exactly. Does it give them too much power to dictate rental rates?
It's like a monopoly.
It kind of is, yeah. Something to think about.
Yeah, for sure. But let's move on to our next player.
Okay.
Education Realty Trust, or EDR.
EDR, okay.
They were a public company.
Right.
But they got acquired by Greystar Real Estate Partners.
Oh, wow.
And they were known for their focus on community engagement.
Okay, well, that's interesting.
Duh.
Yeah, how does that play out under Greystar's ownership?
Yeah.
Greystar's a huge company.
Right. They're like a giant in the multifamily world.
Yeah, a giant in the multifamily housing world. And now that they're in the student housing market,
What does that mean?
it could mean even less competition and potentially less focus on what students actually need.
Right. So it's like the big fish swallowing up the smaller fish.
Yeah, you could say that.
And then what about Campus Crest Communities?
Campus Crest.
They were known for their innovative designs,
Oh.
but they got snapped up by a private equity firm.
I wonder what that means for students in the long run.
Yeah, like is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Yeah, private equity firms are all about maximizing profits.
Right.
So will they prioritize keeping rents affordable for students?
Yeah.
Or will their focus be on making money for investors?
Right. That's the question.
Definitely something to keep an eye on.
Okay, so we've got ACC, EDR, Campus Crest,
Right.
and then there's Greystar.
Oh, yeah. Greystar, the multifamily octopus with tentacles everywhere.
They manage a ton of student housing properties.
They really do.
In addition to all their other holdings.
It's amazing.
It is amazing.
Greystar is a fascinating case study.
What do you think about them?
Well, they have the resources to create more efficient and cost-effective housing solutions.
Right.
But they also have a responsibility to avoid pushing out smaller players
Right.
and limiting options for students.
Yeah, it's like a double-edged sword.
Exactly. They could use their power for good, but they could also use it to squeeze out the competition.
Yeah, we've got to keep an eye on them.
We do.
Next up is Collegiate Housing Services, or CHS.
CHS.
Their focus is on maximizing efficiency
Okay.
and keeping students happy.
Well, that's good.
Right.
Sounds good.
But efficiency shouldn't come at the expense of quality
Right.
or responsiveness to student needs.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that these companies are truly addressing the concerns and priorities of their residents.
Absolutely. So it's about striking that balance
Yeah.
between running a smooth operation
Right.
and actually caring about the students.
Yeah, exactly. Caring about the students who live there.
Okay. And then we have the Scion Group,
The Scion Group.
another big player.
Okay.
They emphasize property management and community building.
Community building.
It seems like a lot of these companies are trying to create that sense of belonging.
Yeah, community building is such a crucial element of student housing.
Yeah.
It's about more than just providing a roof over your head.
It's about fostering a sense of connection and support.
I like that.
But we need to ask ourselves,
Yeah.
what does that actually look like in practice?
Yeah.
Is it genuine or is it just a marketing tactic?
Right. Are they creating authentic communities?
Yeah.
Or just slapping a fancy label on it?
Exactly.
And last but not least, we have core spaces.
Core spaces, okay.
They're privately held.
Right.
And making a name for themselves with their focus on lifestyle-oriented properties.
Lifestyle-oriented properties. What does that even mean for student housing?
Yeah, what does that mean?
Like, think resort-style pools, state-of-the-art gyms, maybe even a coffee shop on the ground floor.
Oh, wow.
It's about creating a living experience that goes beyond the basics.
So it sounds pretty fancy.
It does sound fancy. But this trend towards luxury student housing raises some concerns.
Like what?
Well, could it be driving up costs?
Oh, right.
Making it even harder for students to find affordable options.
So you're saying that while all these amenities sound great, they could be contributing to the affordability crisis.
They could be.
And could this focus on luxury living create a divide between students who can afford these fancy accommodations and those who can't?
Exactly. It's important to consider the potential unintended consequences of these trends. We want to make sure that all students have access to safe, affordable, and supportive housing, regardless of their budget.
Absolutely. So we've covered a lot of ground, haven't we?
We have.
I mean, from the need for affordable housing, these companies that are kind of dominating the market.
Right. And all the trends in between.
Yeah, all the trends.
That's a lot.
And what's really interesting to me is how connected everything is.
It really is.
Like, you can't talk about affordable housing without thinking about these big companies.
Exactly. And you can't analyze the companies without understanding, the forces in the market.
It's a complex ecosystem for sure.
It is a complex ecosystem.
It's like a giant puzzle with all these pieces.
A puzzle. Yeah, I like that.
But, at the end of the day, what does this all mean for students?
Yeah, that's the question we need to keep asking ourselves.
Right.
And there's no easy answer.
Right.
On the one hand, these companies provide much-needed housing.
Yeah, they do.
Often with great amenities and services.
Right.
But on the other hand, their dominance
Yeah.
raises concerns about affordability and accessibility and the potential for just a cookie-cutter student experience.
Yeah, it's like choosing between convenience and control.
Oh, interesting.
Right, you might get these sleek modern buildings that have everything you need.
Right.
But are we sacrificing choice and diversity?
Yeah, are we losing that unique experience?
Exactly, that authentic community feel.
Right, when a handful of companies control so much of the market, it can stifle innovation and limit options for students.
So where do we go from here?
That's the big question, isn't it?
What can students do?
Yeah, what can communities do?
What can these companies do?
To create a more equitable and sustainable student housing landscape.
That's the million-dollar question.
It is a million-dollar question.
How do we find that balance?
Yeah, how do we balance meeting market demands with those values of affordability and inclusivity in community?
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, for starters, I think awareness is key.
Okay.
Students need to be informed consumers.
Right.
They need to understand their rights and the options available to them.
Absolutely.
Communities need to be engaged in, thoughtful urban planning.
Right.
That prioritizes affordable and accessible housing.
Makes sense.
And these companies, they need to move beyond just providing a product and embrace their role as responsible stewards of the student experience.
It's more than just putting up buildings.
Yeah, exactly.
And collecting rent checks.
It's about creating that positive and supportive environment.
Right, where students can actually thrive.
Yeah.
So if you could design a student housing complex from scratch,
wow.
What would be your top priorities?
Wow, that's a big question.
I know, it's a big question.
Well, if it were up to me, I'd focus on fostering a strong sense of community.
Okay.
I'd want to create spaces where students can connect and collaborate and support each other.
I love that.
I'd also prioritize affordability, making sure that housing is accessible to students from all backgrounds.
Yeah.
And of course, sustainability would be a top priority.
Of course.
Incorporating eco-friendly design and practices.
That all sounds amazing.
It'd be pretty cool, wouldn't it?
Creating a place where students feel connected, supported, and empowered.
That's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about. And on that note, we want to leave you with a final thought.
Okay.
Imagine you are designing that student housing complex. What would be your top priorities?
Yeah.
What features or services would you consider essential for creating that positive and supportive living environment?
That's a great question for everyone to think about.
Yeah, maybe sketch out some ideas
Yeah.
and continue exploring this really fascinating world of student housing.
It is fascinating.
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
Yeah, thanks everyone.